Well, we had John first to go, and Mother got dressed in the morning, crying half the night, of course, and we went down to the wharf where there were hundreds and hundreds of people saying farewell to boys. And I don't think anybody wasn't crying, because everybody on that wharf, for some unknown reason, had suddenly realised that this was a war and that New Zealanders were going. Before, it was kind of like a fairy story. They were out in Trentham and out in camps, and they were still home and they were still your boys. And suddenly, your boys were away on a big ship, and we were waving madly, crying, and standing there and couldn't do one thing. And that made you realise that people, our boys, were going to die. And all those boys on the ship, I remember my mother saying, how many of them will come back? Never thinking that ours wouldn't come back, because every mother there thought her boy was coming back. And it was depressing when we came home and watched the ship go out, and there was nothing you can say. It's a kind of funny, you cry and you go into a bedroom where someone's been and you think of something that perhaps you and your brothers or you and your sons have said, and something funny, and all of a sudden you don't really know what to do. Now, my mother scrubbed a bench, and she scrubbed it about 4 times. I remember Mum with a scrubbing brush and a cake of electric sand soap scrubbing this bench. And I said, Mother, what, you've scrubbed that bench. What are you doing? She said, if I don't scrub it, I'll go mad.
You'll find that you'll like New Zealanders, or most of them, and that the New Zealanders will like you, or most of you.
It was a Saturday, and my father used to go fishing on the wharf, and in those days, everybody went fishing, of course, as you know, down on the wharf. And he met these 2 Americans. That was Warren and Bill. And Mum had cut him a lunch, which was most unusual for my father. He shared it, which was another unusual thing. Shared it with 2 Americans, which was really funny. Made Mum and I laugh after when we found out. And he invited these 2 boys back for tea. Now, in those days, people were very prejudiced against Americans, and we had a very nosy neighbour, and I mean nosy. And my father walks in with 2 Americans in uniform. You can imagine what it was like in a small street. And my mother's at the sink, and she said to me, I'll bet Mrs. Thompson's looking through that curtain. And Mum and I rush up to the bedroom, and we pull the bedroom curtain across, and sure enough, there's Mrs. Thompson glaring out. And Mum and I roared and thought it was very funny. And, of course, she couldn't wait. That's another thing. A few days after, she came over to Mum and she said, is Florence going with American? I saw John, that's my father, bring 2 Americans to your place, Mabel. That's not very patriotic, because you know what Americans are. That's what she said to my mother, and my mother told her off. My mother was a gentlewoman. And my mother said, if you spent more time at the back instead of at the curtain and worrying about my daughter, she said would be better. I remember Mum saying that. But anyway, they came and, of course, came for tea. Well, in those days, there was no fridges, and when Mum cooked, she just cooked enough. And here we were, scrimping on things, and Mum whispering to Dad, I wish you'd have told me or let me know, John, that I could have got something else in. But they were very nice, Warren and Bill. They made the best of everything and said, oh, don't worry, that's why we liked them probably, and sat at our funny old table because, don't forget, we had no money in those days. Poor as church mice, really, when I look back. And I kept looking at Warren and really thinking how nice he was, really. You know, and then my father said, I thought, oh, Lord, if I make a date with him, there'll be trouble. I could see Dad, you know. But anyway, it wasn't like that. All out of the blue, Dad said, now, every leave you boys that have come up here, and Mum and I only dropped dead through the floor, we thought, good Lord, this is a change of heart.